Friends, welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. Today I sit down with my friend William Goldfinch, a longtime Conway resident, born and raised, and a servant on Conway City Council. William, thank you for joining me today, buddy.
Autry, the pleasure is all mine. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Conway boy through and through.
All the way. Yeah.
All the way.
Other than a few years in hot Columbia when I was at the University of South Carolina, and then a year at Funeral Home School back in those days. But yeah, the rest of my time's been spent right here in Conway, a little bit over at the beach some, but mostly in Autry County, right here in Conway.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So tell me about growing up in Conway and childhood.
Growing up in Conway is a lot different today than it was back then. You know, back then it seems like we knew everybody, or if you didn't know them, the old saying, you know, I know your people, or their people knew me, or at least they knew of me, or I knew of them. Today that's a little bit different, and you know, it brings challenges, but it also brings opportunities, you know, because people move in and they bring skill sets that we didn't have before. They bring opinions and experiences to share with us that enrich, you know, who we are and how we live and operate, and those are things that we wouldn't have gotten. So it's certainly changed. But I tell you, growing up as a kid in Conway, it was simple. You know, it was simple. And you hear these stories all the time, and you hear them because they're true. But you know, you went outside and you played all day, and you came home at night. And in our case, growing up in the funeral business, we had an old siren. Daddy had taken an old siren off one of the hearses from back in the 60s. And they would plug that old-timey siren into the socket there, and they would blow that, and that was the time. Every kid in the neighborhood knew it was time to go home, to go to their respective house, and that's what we did. But you know, times sure have changed, but you know, our values, Autry, our values haven't changed. Who we are hasn't changed. And I think what will eventually continue to be, I certainly hope will never change, because it's a good thing.
For sure. And William, you said something too. I mean, even with the people that moved in here, I find most of them embrace our Southern culture, or our small town ways, and in a lot of ways they moved here for that. Do you agree with that? 100%,
Autry. I tell you, people want to be here for the same reasons that we didn't leave, for the most part. And you have to appreciate that. And you embrace these folks that want to assimilate into your community and live as peacefully and as comfortably as they can. And we've seen a lot of that, and I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that. I think one of the challenges that we see, and we're not the only ones, of course, but is that people move in, and whereas I take things for granted because I understand them, because I've lived here my entire life, I've experienced certain things that perhaps a newcomer has never experienced before, is that we have to educate them on things that, you know, have worked in the past and things that haven't worked in the past. And that's particularly true in local government. You know, people often wonder, why are y'all doing this instead of that? Or why did you zig instead of zagging? And, you know, it's taken that time to help people that truly want to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and spending that time to help educate them. And we kicked off last year a new initiative in the city of Conway called the Citizens Academy. And, you know, I'd turn on Facebook or social media, and I'd see people posting things that were just outrageous. And then, you know, I'm talking to my wife about it, and she said, well, William, they don't know what they don't know. And I'm like, Sally, that's my saying. I'm supposed to say that. But it's true, they don't know. And so got with staff and got with the rest of council. I said, let's do something to give folks that truly want to learn more about Conway and what goes on and why we do the things that we do, an opportunity. So we did. We created this Citizens Academy last year. And it's been phenomenal. You know, bringing in people, they get a chance to meet with every department head and learn things about the city, learn the history of the city, a lot of interesting facts about South Carolina, about Autry County. You know, we teach them how to say Autry County. It's not Horry, it's Autry, right? And we go through that. So just an educational opportunity for folks who are new to the area, or maybe they're not brand new, maybe they've been here for a long time. They're citizens and they just want a better understanding of why we do what we do. You know, we've put these things in place for that.
And William, you said something that long-time Autry County people know. Goldfinch name is a staple in Autry County, something you should be very proud of. I know you are. But related to the funeral home business, you know.
Right.
But talk to us before that. Y'all were actually in the furniture business. Am I right in saying
That's
that?
right.
Yeah.
So officially 1905, great-granddaddy started the the furniture store right there on Main Street in downtown Conway. And that's how many early funeral homes started. They started out as furniture stores, and then they would sell caskets in the back. And so if someone in the family died...
Say that again. A furniture store sold caskets?
Absolutely. So you had all of your furniture and your tableware and your dishware, almost like a department store of sort up front. And then in the back, they had caskets. And they would, someone in the family passed away, you'd take the wagon up to the furniture store and you'd get a casket, take the casket home and bury them. I mean, maybe...
Simple times.
Simple times. And then, that just evolved over time where the folks from the furniture store were going out to the house and helping the family prepare, for the burial and that sort of thing. And it just evolved. And then in the late 30s, I think they added on to the funeral home that exists today on Beatty Street in Conway to include the sort of modern day funeral home as we know it. But yeah, many funeral homes across the country evolved in that same fashion back at the turn of the last century. And so it's been a long journey, but absolutely right. That is a heritage that I'm extremely proud of, and it's why I dedicate a lot of a disproportionate amount of my life to public service is because I grew up in a service industry, at serving others, helping people, in their time of need when they don't know what to do oftentimes, and you're there for them. And public service is no different. It's inconvenient sometimes, but it's the right thing to do, and stepping out and helping people, especially if you live in a place like this and you've got new folks here that need that guidance and that understanding and that little bit of extra hand holding and patience.
Yeah, which it brings this question to my mind, which I think a lot of our viewers would have this is, you grew up in a home where very unique. The funeral business. What was your early thoughts and views of that like? Your dad was in that. What was it? Tell me your mindset, man.
Yeah. It's all I knew. And so for me, it was normal.
Okay.
And, I would go somewhere as a kid and, maybe it's a summer camp and I would just talk and they said, well, what does your parents do? And, what do your parents do? And my parents, they work in the funeral business. Oh my goodness gracious. And that was so taboo to some people, and it just came very natural to me because that's what I knew. From a small kid, going up there and hanging out and learning and watching and seeing things and seeing my grandfather and my great uncle and then, my cousins and just, really 5 generations now of Goldfinch family in that business in one fashion or the other. Of course, I'm out of it now and have been for quite some time, but nonetheless, that tradition carries on. Yeah.
So help bring me up to speak. So who your dad was and who your mom was. Talk to me a little bit about them.
Yeah. So Will and Diane Goldfinch. So Will was born here in Conway in 1952. And he met my mom, Diane, at the University of South Carolina in 1972 or 1973. They got married in 76, and moved back to Conway. And unfortunately, Dad passed away in 1997 from brain cancer.
Sorry.
And but I had him for 16 years. And every time I get angry about that, Autry, I tell you, we're upset. I just have to remember and be grateful that I had an incredible role model in my life for 16 years, and how many people never have that opportunity. So I am truly blessed beyond measure for that. There's no question. Nonetheless, growing up in that family business, it was stressful, and I say that, and people say, well, what do you mean stressful? Family business, established family business, William, you've got this opportunity here, and that's true. However, that comes with expectations, and I realized that, I wanted to pursue that myself. But then I discovered that I had other interests that sort of took over and consumed the interest of serving in the family business. So, I gave it the honest try, gave it a few years after school, but decided to step away and pursue other interests. And
so graduated high school, went to USC.
Yep.
Then you went to
mortuary school. That's right. Yeah. So I am a 1999 graduate of Conway High School.
Okay.
and then went on to the University of South Carolina, finished up in 4 years. I didn't know there was another option. Some friends of mine later informed me, yeah, you can go for 5 or 6 years. I was told you have 4 years, and so I got that done in my 4 years. And, was a business major at South Carolina and concentrated on finance. And when I was in my junior year, had an opportunity to intern with the Merrill Lynch office in Columbia, a rather large office, big group, and did that and loved it. Learned a lot, and had an opportunity to come back and work for them. But I said, no, I need to pursue my family business opportunity. And to do that, I then moved to Atlanta for a full year to go to mortuary school. And then I came back and I started working in the family business. And, over the next year or two, just had some life experiences, and you're growing and you're maturing, and there's your formative years, and you're figuring out who you are and all that stuff. And I just realized that I really wanted to carve my own path. And that, while I will always love the funeral business and appreciate, my family's commitment to it, I want to do my own thing. And so I have, for 18, 19 years, I've been, operating financial advisory practice in Conway. 10 years ago, my wife, Sally, came over and joined me. She taught AP Calculus and Calculus 2 at Conway High School and loved it. Yeah. But about that time, our 2 little boys were coming of age, and she needed a little more flexibility, and I wanted her to have that. And then I needed her help. I mean, talk about 2 peas in a pod. People say, how do you work with your wife? And or people will ask Sally, how do you work with your husband? And we remind people, she's quit a few times. She's been fired. She's been fired a few times. But listen, hey, where I fall short, she stacks up, and it is a beautiful puzzle piece and a great partnership. So we've been doing that.
Let me step back here. Yeah, William, and I appreciate you being honest with that. But man, that had to be just a thing, really. I mean, Goldfinch from Conway, and like you said, you already said maybe there was some expectations there, but I just commend your bravery for chasing what you thought was right. And, and we talk about it on here a lot, but I think it's okay for young people to try to figure it out and find their path. You want to speak to that any at all?
I do, and that's an excellent point. And I clap. I applaud the people that I see getting up off the floor, not literally, but figuratively.
Right.
That fall down every day, that make a mistake. Yeah. And, because we can sit back and we can become complacent in our lives. And this applies to, to anything, anything in life, right? We can become complacent, okay? Or we can step outside of our comfort zone, and that's where we grow. Right. That's where we experience real growth. We don't do it when we're comfortable. Okay. And so, I've got my own experiences of where, I got into this business that I'm in now early on and literally decided I was going to quit and go back to the funeral business and had some really interesting experiences that have shaped me for the last, well, in this case, 17 or 18 years of that life, and, to get me where I am today. But I think too often today, kids and young adults, and really all of us in general, we live in this instant gratification world. We want everything now. We lose sight of the fact that we have to work for things. And I think about, you think about all of the, we just celebrated, 250 years of America. And you think about those founders. The men that signed their name on that, what they were risking. They had a good life. These were important people in that day, but they risked everything for something greater. And not just for them, but for their families and for their futures. And I think we're all called to do that. I think, I ask God every morning, I still don't think you've used me yet. Like, you're using me, but you've still got use in me, I think. Or at least I hope you do. And Lord, show me that path. Show me that way. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what we're called to do is, as His children, we're here to serve other people, and we're here to be His hands and feet. Yeah. And I think, so working in that funeral business equipped me well to do what I'm doing today. by giving me that experience of service, but as it did for my role in public government, local government as well, because that's what it's all about. It's about helping our fellow man, you know, and how satisfying too.
That's great. You've hit it already, but tell me about your wife and meeting her. And
Yeah. So we met. I was in 11th grade. She was in 10th grade, and we met in Jeff Hardwick's class at Conway High School.
He was a great teacher.
He was.
Yeah.
And anyway, we met in Jeff Hardwick's class. Still remember what she was wearing, and there was something about her. And I said, I'm going to call her tonight. And I called her that night. I got her phone number from one of her friends, and I called her at her house. You know, this is before cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And her dad answered the phone, and I'm like, oh no, you know, like, what do I say?
Yeah.
And anyway, she was working that night at the Conway Motor Inn. Remember the old Conway Motor Inn? Going up there and getting good biscuits, and oh goodness, their fried chicken was delicious. But as was most everything up there. But we met, and just she's put up with me since September 29th, 1997.
Good.
I mean, it's been a long time, and you know.
Congratulations. How many years is that? I'm gonna get you in trouble.
We'll be 21 years in July. Well, 21 years next week is our wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And July 16th, 2005, we were married. But yeah, so I decided, I graduated before she did. We were still, dating at the time, and I was going to South Carolina, and and she said, William, I really want to do my own thing too. And I said, Sally, that's the best thing you can do. Yeah. And so she went to college of Charleston, and football weekends in the fall. I know I'm a Gamecock and you're a Tiger, but two really cool places to be in the fall. So she'd come up for Gamecock games, and then in the spring when it was nice in Charleston, that's a nice place to be in the spring. And so, and then the rest was history. And we got married. We got two beautiful boys, and 12 and 15 now. One's about to start driving. Mac and Sam. They're great. Oh, they're great guys. Thank you. Yeah. You should be proud of them. So what's the marriage advice you give our listeners? Oh my goodness gracious! Listen, I heard this a couple of Sundays ago, and the pulpit preacher was talking about, and we've all heard it a million times. It's so true. You got two ears and one mouth. Mm-hmm. Listen, just listen. Mm-hmm. As much as I like to think I'm right, the reality is I'm not. Yeah. You have to accept that, it's a partnership. Yeah, and don't fire your wife at work, right? Don't fire your wife at work. I think though, but skipping back to that. Yeah. In any kind of relationship, whether it's a marriage or a business relationship or just friends, you're going to have times where there's issues, where there's conflict. And if you can't talk about it, if you can't verbalize it, that thing festers and it gets bigger, and it blows up and causes bigger problems. And so I tell people, and same thing on council. I'm not perfect on council. I put myself out there all the time, and I make mistakes every day. I try to learn from them and grow from them, and wake up every single day trying to be a little better version of myself than I was the day before. But I'm still going to make mistakes. But let's learn from those mistakes. And let's communicate, and if, I tell Sally all the time, if you've got an issue with me, bring it to me. If I've got an issue with you, I'm going to bring it to you. We're going to talk about it. So and we're going to sort it out. Communication. Yeah. And that's applicable for anything. If you just graduated school and you're going to your first job, you need to learn and understand how to communicate with your boss, with your leadership in your organization. That's just common sense. But communicate and put your family first. At the end of the day, if I'm laying on my deathbed one day, who am I going to want right there with me? Am I going to want my favorite client from work? Am I going to want my favorite constituent from the city of Conway? Or am I going to want my wife and my two boys and my family? Well said. And so it is so easy to say, but it's so easy to lose focus, because when you grow up in a service business like I did, you want to make everybody happy. And when you try to make everybody happy, we know oftentimes you spread that a little bit thin, and you hurt the people you love the most. Maybe not hurt, you neglect the people you love the most. And so you have to draw that focus back onto the people that are most important in your life. And at the end of the day, for me, that's my family and friends. But, for others, that might be their neighbor. You know, they don't have any family. They may just have a neighbor or some other support group. So it's extremely important, communication and embracing those that are most important to you.
Thank you for sharing that. So what pushed you towards public service? Conway City, so how many years? You're probably...
This is year 17. I finished this term, that'll be 20 years.
20 years, okay.
So I was, elected last year, so this is 17, 18, 19, 20, elected to 4-year terms.
Yep.
And I'll tell you exactly what got me interested in serving. A guy named Don Fowler. Don Fowler, this might strike you as a little odd, but I was at the University of South Carolina. I told you earlier I got a business degree.
Right.
When you get a business degree, you have to minor in something else. I minored in political science. Don Fowler, big Democrat in South Carolina. He was the 1996 DNC chairman. He was also my teacher. I took 3 classes from him at the University of South Carolina. Brilliant guy. I don't care where your politics land. He was a brilliant guy. And he and I got to talking. And this was right after I'd been working at Merrill Lynch a little bit, and I was sort of conflicted about, well, I don't know, do I want to go back to the family business? Do I want to pursue finance? And then I just jokingly said, I've always had an interest in aviation. He's like, well, if I can get you signed up for that right now, son. And so it started me thinking about, maybe military service. I never pursued military service. And so when I got home and I'm working, I sort of felt like I owed my community something. I got involved with the City of Conway on the Planning Commission, served for a few years. After the untimely passing of Mayor Martin, when Alice Lawson filled his role, that seat was vacated and I ran for it and didn't win. And I'm gonna tell you something, Autry, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It humbled me, it put me in my place. It also showed me who my real friends were, and how caring developing our community was, because they really did surround me in the wake of that, and came around the next election and I won handedly. But it was a good, humbling experience. It was a great experience.
It might have said there too, William, like you, I didn't win my first time either. The other thing I think it exposes in you is if you truly want to serve. I know even losing that night, I don't know if you had the same feeling. I knew that instant I still wanted to serve, and I was going to pursue it again. I don't know if you had that same experience or not.
Yeah. When you know it, you know it.
Yeah.
And someone says, how do you know?
Yeah.
And I said, do you remember the first fish you ever caught? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, well, think about it. You're sitting there on the edge of the pond with your granddaddy or somebody, your daddy, and you're fishing, and you say, Granddaddy, I don't know, how do I know if I've got a fish? And Granddaddy says, well, you just know. And until you experience that, you don't know what it's like. But it's the same thing. When you know, you know. And how do you know you love someone well enough to ask them to marry him? Because you just do, right? And that was the case for me. I know it was with you, with public services. This is, I want to get in there and I want to learn, and I was steadfast in doing that.
Quickly running out of time, but you've already said it, and one of William Goldfinch's favorite sayings, you don't know what you just don't know. And I remember the first time you said that to me, and I'm like, I don't really know what he means. And you're like, you'll figure it out, and I think that's serving on council. You just don't know what you don't know.
I have to, when I see a comment on social media or someone stops me at the grocery store and they say, well, why did we do this? And my first inclination sometimes is to think critically of them, because I'm like, why would you think that? And then I realize they don't know what I know. And if they knew what I knew, they wouldn't be asking the question, or they wouldn't be posting ridiculous comment on social media. So, this goes back to educating people and helping them understand, helps them be better citizens, not just for the community, it helps them be better citizens for themselves, their families, and so, but it is, we have to be cognizant that, we know. I mean, you go to the doctor because you don't know what's wrong with you. That's why you go to the doctor. And, but you don't know what you don't know. And, but a lot of people seem to know a lot of things.
I want to brag on you at this point. I had a chance to serve with you just for a short time, and I think the thing that people should know about council, even where our council is composed now, our members and our mayor, we all come from different points of life, which I think is a beautiful thing. If we were all the same professions, we just wouldn't have the same perspective. And what I appreciate about you, William, is you share your thoughts. And me coming in as a very green person, maybe I just didn't know what I didn't know, and then maybe I shared my thoughts, and I'm like, gosh, I don't know how this is going to be received. And I remember we kind of left the dais and we went to the back, and you pick a drink up and you kind of sit down, and I didn't know how my fellow council people were going to view me. And you said, Autry, I appreciate you sharing today. And you said something very profound. You says, Autry, if we don't all share our views, and so the public don't know where we're coming from, we're not going to be better.
Yeah.
And I think you've always taken that approach with your fellow council.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. But the only thing that I know is what goes through this thick skull. Okay? I want to hear your opinion, their opinion, everyone's opinion. Mm-hmm. I may not like it. I may not agree with it. But if I never hear it, then I don't have anything to compare and contrast. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest issues in education today, people talk about diversity, people think it's the way people look. I don't care how someone looks. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for diversity in thought.
Say that again.
I don't care how people look. I'm looking for diversity in thought.
That's a good thing.
Okay? And we've got that at the city of Conway right now. Now we've got all sorts of diversity, but we've got diversity of thought, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. You don't want 7 people that think like William. You don't want 7 people that think, like the other members of council. You want, and a lot of times, many times, and you've witnessed this, where, I hear someone else's perspective and I'm like, goodness gracious, mm-hmm. You're right. Mm-hmm. I have not thought about it that way. Mm-hmm. Or at the very least, it gives me some perspective that I didn't have and an opportunity to better respect their approach and where they're coming from. And that builds collaboration, that builds trust. Mm-hmm. And when you do that in an organization, even like the city of Conway, the fruit is what you're seeing going on right now in Conway right now. Yeah. No question about it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're about out of time. But William, we've got a tremendous staff in Conway, don't we?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, people think oftentimes, and Mayor Barbara says this all the time, and she's so right. People say, they try to give us the credit. Well, okay, thank you, but the real credit goes to our staff and volunteers. We've got 140 to 150 citizen volunteers that put up Easter and spring decorations this year. People that just want to, because they're just mesmerized by the energy that's spewing out of the city of Conway, and people want to embrace it and be a part of it. It is an incredibly wonderful thing.
Well, William, you got to come back and let's talk some more about Conway.
We'll do it.
We
Would
need
love
to scratch the surface.
All right, brother.
For sure.
Thank you.
Friends, thank you for joining us today. Fascinating conversation. If you haven't visited downtown Conway in a while, please go. It's a beautiful place, unlike a place you'll never visit again. But are you serving in your community? There's many ways to serve. Make sure you give back to a beautiful community that's been so good to us. Join us next time.